This is the first time I've ever talked about this publicly. So this is huge for me.
Have you ever been a victim of cancel culture as a result of your politics in that industry?
No.
Because?
I haven't revealed it.
And then all of a sudden you drop something on me. I know Ray Epps.
Ray Epps was my handyman.
Shem von Schroeck. Did I get it right?
You got it right. One of the few.
Awesome. If I had not done my homework, I probably wouldn't have. But I can tell you right now, Shem, I am so excited about this interview. I've been more excited about this one than any other, which the listeners will find out why as we go a little bit further into this. But the primary thing for me is that we're going to be able to cover a more diverse array of topics over the next hour than I'm accustomed to when I do these types of interviews. And we're going to cover music. We're going to cover cancel culture. We're going to be able to cover Ray Epps. This is how far we're going on this. So let's just lay the groundwork here before we go any further. Let's make sure that not only do I have your name right, but we've got the bio right. All right. So when I say Toto, Kenny Loggins, Christopher Cross, Michael McDonald, Ambrosia, Don Felder of the Eagles, you've played with all of them.
Toured extensively with them all. Yeah.
Toured extensively with all of them.
Yeah.
And the punchline is that you have a relationship going back 2007-ish with Ray Epps of January 6th fame?
I'd say 2008 to 10. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. All right, give me a little bit more background on who Shem von Schroeck is, your background, your history, your bio. Let's just start from the beginning.
Started as a career in music. My dad was a New York musician in the recording studios, did very well-known arrangements of songs for many artists. Probably the most notable is Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. That's my father's band arrangement. And the interesting thing about that, which I tell people, is the part of the song that everyone knows is ba-da-da-da-da. Everybody hears that, bing.
Yeah.
That's probably more famous than the song, or the most famous part of the song.
I'll give you that.
But that's not part of the composition of the song. Bob Gaudio, who wrote the song, said to my dad, give me a Stan Kenton kind of arrangement, horn arrangement for this song. And that's the part of the song people know more than anything. It's just the arrangement part. So we grew up with a gold 45 record on the wall for that.
So I didn't tell you this, but I have not toured, played, or performed with the level of artists that you have, but I have played with Frankie Valli. And of course, I was in his horn section and I got to play.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most exciting things that I ever did, was just taking a photo of the set list and taking a photo of number one hit after number one hit after hit after hit after hit after hit.
Bob Gaudio.
It was incredible. And that was your dad was involved in that era.
Yeah.
With Frankie Valli.
Because they're New Jersey guys.
I didn't know that.
And my family's from New Jersey originally. So yeah, I fell into that, started doing arrangements. Lou Christie's Lightning Strikes, that song.
Mm-hmm.
That's my father's arrangement too.
Wow.
So this is what he was doing, and he would take me to the recording studios as a little kid, like 3-4 years old, and bring me out into the studio where the musicians were. My dad said, see the red light? That goes on. Zip it. You talk, you're not coming to another one.
Right.
That's what you did. So as I got older, I started playing music and being an instrumentalist. I started playing drums, did my first recording session in New York with adults when I was 13, playing drums. And somehow moved on to bass, just kind of happened. And
what attracted you to the bass guitar? Because you play everything.
My dad's a drummer and a jazz pianist. I'm a drummer. My brother's a drummer. My dad says, somebody in this house has to play something other than the drums because your mother's going crazy. So he bought my brother an old Fender Mustang bass guitar, and he didn't really have much interest in it. So I sat against the wall. I just picked it up and started playing it, and it came pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Next thing I know is I'm playing bass, and my dad said, audition for the jazz band on bass this year. See how that works. So I did. And I learned how to read and started playing. And next thing I know, when I'm moving to California to pursue my dream, you know, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, keyboards, this. People are like, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, I play them all. And they go, well, no, which one do you do? They can't.
Right.
So I noticed that the work was for a strong singing bass player. There's a million drummers in LA. There's a million keyboard players in LA. A million singers in LA. But singing bass player, there was market for that. So I put myself out there as that. And within the first 4 months, I'm replacing Joe Puerta as the bass player in Ambrosia.
Wow.
I mean, it was very fortunate. I'm 23 when I moved there. And so that connection got me noticed by this person or that person. Kenny Loggins was looking for a singing bass player to replace his guy at the time. And my audition for that was driving up to his house in Santa Barbara, sitting in his little parlor and just singing harmonies with him, and you know, see you on the next gig.
Yeah. What about singing lead bass players? There's been a lot of those. I mean, obviously Chicago. Oh gosh, who else? Mr. Mister.
The Police.
Which is one of my favorite bands of all time, Richard Page.
Sure.
And of course we can get into rock and roll, and we starting with McCartney, and then move forward with how many, you know, Lemmy from Motorhead or whatever. But
Jack Bruce.
Yeah, but did you ever desire to be something more than a sideman, or?
Yes, I moved to LA to pursue my own music.
So you wanted to?
Yeah.
All right.
And I had a band, original band there that was, you could call it Mr. Meets Journey like. Toto like, if you will. And we bounced around, played the club circuit, but then I started getting busy with touring, making, you know, a living.
Right.
You know, I can make a living with your band if it's not signed to a multi-deal. And that's how I made my living. And I lost the desire to want to be the guy in the spotlight.
Yeah.
I didn't need that anymore. That kind of went past me.
And it was a genuine, I mean, you were okay with giving that up. It didn't gnaw at you later on?
No, it's never gnawed at me. Because I've done enough things on my own with my name on it that the artistic and personal satisfaction for the art itself was enough. You know?
All right, so I'm just gonna jump forward now. All right. And I'm gonna geek out for a moment, and to a lot of people's amusement, I am an unapologetic, lifelong Toto fan. Now, for a lot of people, they don't understand who Toto is. You know that. You know, they think of Toto as Africa, and Africa is basically the most un-Toto song of all the Toto songs.
You can say that.
But it, of course, is not only their biggest and most enduring hit; it is monstrous hit.
It's an American anthem.
Yeah, it is. It is, and certainly Rosanna is more representative of who and what Toto's lexicon of music is, but it goes much further than that. We're talking about great prog rock and incredible R&B. I mean, they spanned every genre within pop music and did it all at a very high level, basically entertaining themselves, probably, because they were just. Well, they were who they were.
They didn't put any creative boundaries on what they did because they were so diverse in their playing styles.
Yeah.
And the writing, therefore, translated to that. So they approached everything where it's just, what's going to be on a Toto album? Well, let's put a hit or two, but also we can do what challenges us. And that's one of the most valuable points of that band.
Well, everyone that knows me knows that Toto is my favorite band of all time in terms of pop rock bands. Steve Lukather, the founding member and guitarist, has been, quite frankly, my favorite musician of all time. Not only because of his guitar playing, but his songwriting and his vocals and pretty much everything that he's done, especially studio. His lexicon of studio work is unmatched.
Yeah, there's a Mount Rushmore place for him in terms of that, for sure.
And so I when I learned that you had joined the band, so this was 2016, 17?
I got hired in November 28th of 16.
All right. So Toto, since it's the original founding members, and then after Toto 4 was the first changeover. They had to replace the lead singer.
Correct.
And at the same time, they replaced their original bassist, David Hungate, and brought in Mike Porcaro,
Brother Mike.
who was the brother of Steve and Jeff Porcaro, already and founding members of the band. So I think Mike was a fait accompli anyway at some point. Hungate was a lot older than the rest of the guys, and he just wanted to be in the studio, and he didn't want to tour.
I think he moved to Nashville right after.
Yeah,
that,
he did.
too. Yeah.
And so then they became basically, Toto became not, I don't want to categorize them as a revolving door of musicians, but Toto was more of a concept than a specific lineup of musicians as it evolved over the years.
I would agree with that. I've never heard it put like that, but I would agree with that. I think that's spot on.
Because when they did replace somebody, it was once again, it was an A-level session musician, singer, whatever the case may be. And so I maintained my fandom through the years. I think I took my children to their first Toto concert in 2015, actually touring, co-headlining with Michael McDonald at the time. Hungate had returned to the band and was on bass.
That's
that was
right.
kind of cool to get to see the original bassist with the band. But as I said, my fandom means that whoever's in the band, I'll end up following them on social media. So in that rotation of musicians, regardless of who it's been over the years, whether it was Greg Fillinganes filling in for David Page, all of a sudden I'm following him on social media.
Sure.
If it's Lee Sklar filling in after Mike got sick and had to leave the band, then I'm following Lee Sklar. You join the band, I start following your stuff. Well, more recently, here post-COVID, the world's back playing music again. You didn't go out with them again, but you're still I'm still following you on social media.
Right.
So suddenly, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, and eventually where I think maybe we're going with this conversation today, is I started noticing the most faint glimmers of, I want to characterize this correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the most faint glimmers in some of your posts of more right-leaning politics.
Can you give me an example? Because you said correct you if you're wrong. You're not wrong. I've made it a point to not go there on social media. That's not the platform. That's not what I'm on these platforms for.
Right.
I'm there to just show what I'm up to.
Yeah.
It's really just a sharing of, here's what I did today. Here's what piece of art I created today, or here's what project I'm working on here. And throughout my whole social media presence, it's never been important. So I'm curious. Now I'm interviewing you.
Well, it's all yeah.
Where was the lean?
That I wish I had looked it up, because if I knew you were going to counter me for the example, I would have brought it up. But that when I did reach out to you, because when I saw what I thought was there, I DM'd you.
Yeah.
You responded, and you didn't just respond, but you also noticed that I work for the Blaze. You responded positively.
Sure. Right.
You went so far as to tell me you'd been a Glenn Beck fan for years, that you read the Blaze every morning.
Yeah.
And then I guess after a discussion with your wife, after y'all looked up who I was, you went, "Oh, you're that guy.
You're that Steve Baker."
Right.
Yeah.
The one that got hauled away in leg chains.
Right.
So it was there. So maybe it wasn't overt, and maybe it's just my hypersensitive. How some people have a gaydar. Maybe I've got a political radar of some sort as well.
Conar.
Yeah, but that was what drew me to you in the first place. And then after we had our initial conversation, I asked you if you would like to do a podcast, and we started talking about the possibilities of what we wanted to talk about. And one of the things that I was most curious about as a Toto fan, now to be sure, before I go here, Kenny Loggins, just mind-boggling. The creative genius there, the singer, the writer, has blown my mind, since the 70s.
Tremendous music maker.
Yeah, I mean, I had Loggins and Messina, cassette tapes and 8 tracks going all the way back in my car back in the 70s.
His maniacal way of making music, and I don't say that disparagingly, made me a better musician. Because he was always, change that, fix that, move that, change that, you know.
Yeah.
For difference to Toto, you play the same arrangement for an entire 3 years of the song. It never changes, right? It's the book. Kenny will go, on the second chorus, you sing the middle part, and you switch part, like, never done, but it's what he wants. So it made you sharp.
Right.
So I very much credit him with making me better.
And I won't go through all the rest of my admiration of the artists that you've toured with, but when you got to Toto, you became an apex predator in my mind, you know, in terms of music. Oh, by the way, you're not one of those perfect pitch guys, are you?
I am.
You are. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
It's a curse.
Gift. Yeah, it's a curse and a blessing, though, isn't it?
Yeah. It has its use, and it maybe makes things quicker for you to get from here to there with your ear, but it can also be if you're listening to something that's not in. Don Felder would tune his guitars down a half step
On purpose.
to help his, just to ease the vocals a little bit. So his guitar techs naturally assumed that I wanted my bassist tuned down half step, and I'm like, this is wrong.
Right.
I said, keep me in standard tuning.
Yeah.
I'll make the adjustment to the key. That kind of stuff.
And I'm not a perfect pitch guy, but if you know anything about trumpet players, particularly pop trumpet players, we play B-flat trumpets.
That's right.
So we're playing an instrument that's pitched differently than the piano and the guitar. And so on the occasion when I'm doing classical music and I have to play a C trumpet, it takes me, a couple of days of just rehearsal to reorient my ear to that.
Yeah,
and that's not being a perfect
vibration change.
Right.
It's like
yeah.
body goes, wait a minute.
Right. All right, so we chased a rabbit that some people will find interesting. Some people will go, what are they talking about? So let's go back to the Toto thing. So as I said, once you joined Toto, then you were on my radar screen at that point. And then when we started talking, there were things that I want to know as a fan that were unanswered questions. And one of those is the most obvious, is in the Toto social media online realm, you were really, really liked among the fandom.
It seemed that way.
Oh, it's not a question. I actually saw you 3 times on their 40th anniversary. What is it? 40 Trips Around the Sun tour.
That's right.
I saw you live, twice in Nashville, once in Durham, North Carolina, on that tour, and I will tell you that you were highly regarded among the fans, which is not an easy thing to do considering whose shoes you were stepping into. David Hungate, Mike Porcaro, Lee Sklar, Nathan East. Oh, how could I forget about Nathan? Yeah, I forgot he was in there.
Yeah.
And then to have you step into that pantheon of amazing world-class bassists, and you held your own. Not only there, but also as a vocalist. Not all those guys sang.
No, there wasn't a singing chair, and that was the criteria that going in. That's why Steve Porcaro suggested me, because I'd known him for years, and he said, if we want to make the bass playing chair a singing chair, I know a guy.
He's the guy.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the other guys were aging. Voices are going lower. I mean, one of the hits that not hits, but one of the songs that they went back and pulled out of the archives and re-recorded. Help me remember the name of it real quick. You were singing Page's old lead part, the high vocal part.
Lovers in the Night?
No, it wasn't that one, but it'll come to me in a second. But the point being is that Page did not have the falsetto he had when he was, 21 years old. I think when they originally recorded that song, and you took over and you were singing his part in the shows live, and so I certainly think that having that singing bassist on there helped cover a lot of those.
Well,
parts.
yeah. Prior to that, the high vocal parts was a singer, a female singer that they had singing backup.
That's right.
And Jenny, I think her name was, and so I was basically covering her parts, and then whatever new material we did, that was. So they were combining those two roles.
Yeah. So one of the things that happened, the tour ended, I think in October of 2019, if I remember. Mm-hmm. See, I told you I'm a geek. I'm a Toto geek.
Philadelphia was the last show.
That's right. And then the lockdowns happened because of the pandemic. And so everybody's out of work for the next,
Yeah.
18 months or whatever it was. And so during that time, there seemed to be some rumblings among, rumors among those who knew that there were some underlying problems going on in Toto and, during the end of that tour. And we didn't know when you did not come back with the next lineup that they put together, that actually during the lockdowns, they did a concert with no crowd, it was
Right.
a video concert, whole new lineup of guys. You weren't there. And a lot of questions from the fans. Is there anything you can or care or want to clean up?
Clean up. Wow. I have not, this is the first time I've ever talked about this publicly. And the only people that know what I know, how I know it, is, immediate family, close friends. Yeah. So this is huge for me. I too, well, first of all, the last year of my time with him, the infighting in the band, just got toxic.
Well, there was a family problem going on at the time, kind of, the Porcaro family versus Lukather, basically.
Yeah, and I stayed, I kind of la about all that.
Yeah.
Because that's not for me to say. There were some legal issues with Jeff's widow.
Right.
And Susan. And head to head with Lukather, and wasn't my department.
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't hired in the band to have an opinion about anything. I was there to play bass and sing, and show up on time with a smile on my face. But there was just like hate and animosity going on. This guy won't ride in a van if that guy's in it. This guy won't share a dressing room with this. And I started to go, this is becoming, it was the best of times and now it's the worst of times.
Yeah.
It was a Charles Dickens novel. And I saw that started to go downhill when David Page stopped touring.
Page stopped touring. Now David Page, the founding member and keyboard player.
Correct.
He
wrote basically the whole first two albums.
Right. Rosanna wrote Hold the Line. Co-wrote Africa. Right, with Jeff.
Yeah. Well, I'll get a story about that if you want to geek out on that. Africa.
Yeah, we'll come back to that if
Africa.
you remember.
Yeah.
But going back to the animosities in the bands, that's not uncommon. There's a lot of bands, it doesn't matter who we're talking about. Sometimes there's two brothers in the band and they have separate tour buses because they can't stand each other.
True. I will tell you from my observing, right? Did a lot of this and just observed. The first year with David Page in the band, it was golden. Everybody loved everybody. The band was playing great. It was a big family on the road. Everybody loved everybody. When he left, I watched like a wheel come off the truck. I watched like it went from, Dave's presence kind of has you got the kindly old grandfather there and you want to behave yourself around him. Not that it's just the presence.
Yeah.
When that presence was gone, it got a little Lord of the Flies.
Really?
The parental, patriarchal presence caused a lot of immaturities,
misbehaviors began to happen.
Surface, right? A lot of immaturity for men in their 60s. It was just hard to watch, and hard to watch your heroes just go there.
What's the saying? It's about meeting your heroes.
Well, yeah. Well, there's one step higher. Don't work with your heroes.
Don't work with your heroes.
Yeah. So, in March of 2019, I reached out to the top, Steve Lukather, and just said, I wrote him a letter. A very nice professional letter that I delivered in two forms, one text and one audio. I guess things can get lost in translation in the written word. Just wanted to be clear. And it was basically a cry for help like, hey, we've got 3 months until the next run starts. I'm not sure I can continue with all this, hate and stuff going on amid the band. It's hard for me. I'm appealing to the top to try to see if there's, maybe we should have a band meeting or something, just kind of The response I got, which I won't disclose because that's private, right? It's between, so I won't say what it said. It did not say, yeah, we need to fix this. It's we need to, let's see what we can do. Maybe we should see if we can work it out. Let me handle it. Nothing like that. It was, I'm paraphrasing, it was basically a threat that says, if you don't finish out the calendar year and if you quit, your professional reputation will suffer.
Wow.
So I had a decision to make. Quit, or like to say, put your big boy pants on and finish out the year. Hoping that maybe things would get better.
Yeah.
It got worse. Just got worse.
Well, the most devastating thing, most devastating news for Toto fans like myself especially, and I'm talking about around the world, and I know most Americans don't know this, but Toto overseas is
huge.
A completely different phenomenon than, I mean, we know Africa here, the American market knows that, but overseas, they know everything.
Every
they know
word.
The deepest.
20-year-olds know every word. It was an eye-opener to me to witness that firsthand and seeing these like young kids in their 20s mouthing every word in a language that's not their first language.
Right. But so the most devastating news for us was the final schism between the last remaining Porcaro brother and Steve Lukather. Basically, with all lack of a better way of putting it, both of them announcing that there would never be a relationship between the two of them ever again, that they would likely never, not just not perform together, probably never speak to each other again.
As a fan, that's sad. I'm a fan too. I grew up a fan. Yeah, that's just, you don't want to read that.
Right, and the Porcaro family, the Toto fans had lost two Porcaro brothers to, unfortunate tragic deaths.
Yeah.
Jeff back in '92, and then
Mike.
Gosh, what was it, 2015-ish, somewhere in there, that Mike passed away from ALS.
Yeah.
And another show that I took my kids to see, we went up to Brooklyn and saw them with Yes and Chris Squire, and Mike had passed almost at the same time, same year. And so they were doing a tribute on that show. So you can see my fandom is genuine.
He's good.
And so
he's good.
So knowing that schism had happened, was that what was taking place in the band at the time?
That was part of it. There was part of it. I'm not going to single people out because it's not what I'm here to do. But there's people on this planet that are happiest when they're pissed off.
Yeah.
They're happiest when they're being nasty. That makes them really, it gives them a lot of pleasure.
Yeah.
And there were people who just woke up wanting to be difficult.
But you're still friends with most of the band that you toured with, right?
If we were 8 guys,
right.
If there's 7 others than myself, I still talk to regularly 5 of them. There's 2 that I have no use for.
Right.
One, won't even go there. But yeah, Lukather and we don't speak. And I don't know what you want me to, if there's a certain point you want me to get to, but
there is. Let's get to the point, because eventually, and again, I will say this in all full disclosure. Not only has Toto been my favorite band of all time, but Lukather has been, as I said before, my favorite musician of all time. Not just because of the insane player that he is on guitar, unmatched in a lot of people's minds. But his songwriting, his vocals, his lexicon of studio work. But during the lockdowns, there was some social media from Luke
about me,
about you, negatively.
Well, you said the word, you started to hear rumblings.
Right.
Well, I did too. Because for the 3.5 years, he and I, we didn't have one argument, one fight, one heated exchange, one intense debate. Nothing. We get along great. No problems. Why? Because I saw to it. This can be a very emotionally unstable person that can go from laughing at the funniest, silliest joke to tearing someone's head off, like you've never seen anyone's head torn off. And it's because you said he's one of your favorite musicians, one of my favorite musicians. Like growing up, it's like if I have a top 3 guys who I want to play with someday.
Right. He's in the group.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
if not the top, he's in there.
Yeah.
Dreams come true.
Right.
So when you see that possibility of a person can react that way, that's one of your heroes, you're like, oh, we can go there? That's possible? So when you see that right out of the gate, you go, I'm going to navigate around that. That's never going to happen to me. He's never going to rip my head off. And if he does, I'll handle it. But
he never did.
Not for anything of any importance. One time he thought I took a, I was trying to help him because of his shoulder problems. I took one of his bags off the plane. He didn't know I did.
Oh.
So in front of a sea of passengers, he goes, "You scared the hell out of me, you mother effer." In front of, and I'm going, sorry, man, I was just trying to help. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was never for anything musical or anything like, that never happened.
Well, a quick story though. I'm sure you've probably heard it. Shannon Forrest told me. Of course, Toto notoriously hated to rehearse.
Yeah,
right.
I do too.
right. But they didn't, and they relied upon the ears of people like you to get it right and
show up prepared, ready for the first show. Yeah.
And so Shannon Forrest tells the story about the first rehearsal he ever had. He said, I had the whole show down. He said, I had everything down. He said, it was a piece of cake, and he said, but there was one ending they didn't send me. It was an ending to a song, and so I hesitated to see what the rest of the band was going to do.
Sure.
And I followed the band. And he said, Luke turned around and gave me a look that I've never seen before. Of course, he's a Nashville cat, and he went, oh man, this is a whole different level of perfection.
That's what I'm saying. Or just a whole other level of reaction.
Yeah.
Because when I would see people's heads get bitten off, every time I would walk away going, the situation wasn't worthy of that type of anger or reaction. So
let's go to the social media thing. What happened when Luke kind of?
Prior to that, I started to hear rumblings. Musicians talk to each other. Hey man, this person said this person. I had a guitar player friend call me and say, hey, my buddy was having a conversation with Lukather and he was trashing you. I'm like, impossible. For what? I don't know. He just said that you were, difficult or, no way. I said, you heard it wrong. Cut to, and then I started to hear more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a keyboard player buddy of mine who plays for a couple of high-profile bands, and he was watching the World Series in '20, and I think the San Francisco Giants were playing, and I think the Beach Boys were on TV, and he started a tweet thread that said, "It's not the Beach Boys without Brian Wilson." So everybody's just piling on. It's not this, but it's not Queen without Fred. And I said the same could be said of David Page and Maurice White.
Okay.
To my buddy's thread.
Yeah.
I was coming at it from not if Dave isn't there, there's no Toto. It was without Toto, without David, the first album doesn't exist.
Right.
Without Maurice White,
doesn't exist.
there is no. Okay.
Right.
That's where I was coming at. Well, Lukather has his minions on social media. I call them the flying monkeys. And they'll just do his bidding, whatever. Well, screenshot.
All right.
Sends it to him. What does he do? He sees it, gets no context, doesn't assess, doesn't investigate, and just goes all with a tweet. Do you have that tweet?
No, I don't have it up, but I remember.
Paraphrasing, basically saying, I'm by far the worst musician in the band. I was by far the worst musician in the band. Nobody wants to work with you. Your career's over. It was just like, and I didn't see it because I wasn't following him. After I left, and I've been gone a year at this point, I wasn't following him. Well, everybody and their uncle is just like sending me this. Did you see? Did you see? I was, what? That's how I woke up to that. So I went to his Twitter only to find out I'm blocked. So he sends it addressed to me but blocks me.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that was courageous.
Well, look, and that's why I set you up earlier by saying that this type of thing that happens in band dynamics are hard to explain to people who haven't lived them in the first place and understand them. And we now have the inconvenience of social media to have to navigate and deal with as well. And it is impersonal. We don't get to see each other in our face. We can't read. 90% of all communication is nonverbal. And when it's when the other 10% is Twitter, look out, man.
Well, I started to do my own investigation, like where is this coming from? Because now it was confirmed. These rumblings that I heard, he was saying those things. So I started to do investigation into what happened, because I had no idea. Like I said, I thought the guy was, not Steve, but my friend was like, nah, you didn't hear that right. During our last run of our band, we were informally told by him, Toto's done, never going to tour again, so many legal problems, this is stupid, so everybody's free to go find new work, we're done. You know, you just feel the air go out of the room. Privately, I'm thinking, I don't want to come back.
Right.
Now I don't have to quit.
Right.
So I told one of the other members, who was my best friend in the band, one of the other principal members, very close to him. And I just said, we were just talking, I said, well, if this thing does ever get back on the road, count me out, I'm done. That got back. You know the dynamic in relationships where it's, you know, you don't break up with me, I break up with you.
Right.
Well, in this case, it's you don't quit on me, I fire you.
Yeah.
Instead of wishing me well, it was, I've got to change the narrative. Because like you said, the fans were receptive
Correct.
to my being involved.
Yep.
So what do you do with something like that? So you go, Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge, which I'm never seeking, but the best revenge is to not be like your enemy.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't respond.
That's my point.
Yeah. You never did.
If I had acted like he did, in his power bubble of no one ever challenging him on his authority because they're afraid of their livelihood and getting canned, he forgets, because he can, Orwellian-like, change any narrative he wants and believe this to be fact. He doesn't realize by saying things in that tweet, I have stacks of emails, screenshots of text messages of him heaping praise on me. Like, bring tears to your eyes kind of stuff. Stacks of it.
Right.
You know, consummate professional, bro, you saved our ass last night on you know, thanks so much for being like, you know, the God you are, all this stuff. I'll tell you the one that to this day brings tears to my eyes, and you'll appreciate this one. After a near disaster on stage, and my music director head went off, and I kind of got everybody back. It was on Jake to the Bone, which is, you know.
Oh, right.
He goes, man, you're such a mother effer. He goes.
That was, by the way, a term of endearment in this context.
In this context,
right.
It was.
Right.
He goes, and I'm going to say this verbatim because this meant a lot to me at the time. He goes, I believe there was divine inspiration upstairs from Jeff and Mike that guided their brother Steve to bring you into this band. From him.
Wow.
You save stuff like that from a place in your heart.
Right.
I have 45 examples of that type of communication with me. If I had been like him, I would have posted one a day.
All of them, right.
One a day, Exhibit A, Exhibit B. Like, it made him look like such a fool.
Why now? Why are you talking about it now?
It's been 5 years. I've been out of the band longer than I was in it.
Okay.
It's okay. Prior to that, I didn't, and again, nothing I'm saying here is meant to disparage.
Yeah.
Nothing. I've been silent too long. Fans like yourself have been curious. I've seen YouTube comments under videos, something went wrong with, and I've heard, just don't respond. Just let it be out there.
Well, now Luke has a history of kissing and making up over time. Do you see that ever happening?
Anything's possible. So I'm not going to say never. And if he's, forgiveness is, a thing of God.
Yeah.
Right? I don't see our paths ever crossing again in any context. My career is so far removed from that I don't foresee it. If it came across my bow, I'd entertain it.
Yeah. So that's a good segue.
Because there's never any on the road bad blood that ever happened.
Right, right.
And that's what I want people to know. That our history creatively was strife-free.
Well, and I said something to you in the green room here at the Blaze Studios earlier today. I said, it's a very small, it's thousands of people, but in terms of the percentage of the population, it's a very small percentage of people who have actually had to live on a tour bus.
Submarine on wheels, I call it.
And I called it concentrated real life. Because whatever was going on was exacerbated tenfold. If it was, if it was...
well, like you said, because on a regular job, you can go home.
That's right.
And meet at the office. This is the rolling office.
That's right.
The show is 2 hours a night, but there's the other 22 hours in the day where you have to coexist.
Yeah. You're on stage with them for 2 hours, and then you have to go live with them.
Are you a good hang? Is a big criteria for getting gigs.
Yeah, and you can't not pass them going down that narrow aisle on the bus.
Make a hole.
You have to confront and have to deal with what's going on at the time.
And boy, I tell you, the last year of that tour was rough in that exact regard.
Well, so you gave me a transition opportunity a moment ago when you talked about at this point in your career. You're doing other things now. But you've always done these things, haven't you? I mean, you've been composing. You've had. I noticed, like in one of your videos, actually, when you were touring with Toto in Europe, you're saying, "Look, you've got to visit the churches," but then you also say, "But of course, I visit the opera houses," because you sing opera as well.
Yeah, I did that for a while. Did in Germany, 2008, 9.
And now you are doing what?
I'm composing for film. That's my first love. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, would you rather be at home in your studio composing or be out on the road live? I'd say be out on the road live, but that has completely flipped. I much prefer creating. I love the exploratory aspect to art in composing. Mm-hmm. Fluke the Wicked playing, I got to sing, you got to do Rosanna and hold the line in Africa again. He would say that once a week.
Right.
Like, well, I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
It's something new. It's a new project. And you're forced to bring out things in yourself that you didn't think possible. And when you do, it's so rewarding artistically. That's really.
So when one of my radars we talked about earlier picked you out of the what would typically be considered a leftist industry, by and large, entertainment industry at whole, music certainly. When I picked you out and thought, am I seeing something else there? Then I eventually learned from you that you even composed the theme to Bill O'Reilly's current show. Is that correct?
This is true.
How did this relate? Where does your relationship with Bill O'Reilly begin?
Bill O'Reilly and I are friends.
Wow.
I was playing at the Westbury Music Fair with Kenny Loggins in September of 2014. August of 2014. And Bill O'Reilly doesn't do a meet and greet afterwards. If he's coming to see an artist and they know he's coming, he comes before the show. He brought his son, Spencer, who I think was 12 or 13 at the time. He was a little kid. I think he's like 6, 7 now.
Wow.
Sweet kid. Bill comes backstage and I'm standing there and I'm, O'Reilly Factor daily viewer. And Bill goes right into interview mode with Kenny. So how many shows do you do a year? And what do you pick up bands wherever you go? And Kenny's just kind of like starstruck, and he just like kind of turns to me, like I said, we do like 60, 80 shows a year, You know,
Kenny was starstruck
Kenny,
at Bill
well,
O'Reilly.
He was put off. I mean, not
Okay.
put off, just like he's caught off guard.
I got you.
Right. So every question that he asked Kenny would just turn to me like, "What's the answer?" And I just so the conversation was post show. Bill and I kept in touch, and when he would come to Phoenix and do shows with Dennis Miller or whomever, I'd go. If he came to see Toto at was it Radio City Music Hall?
Oh, wow.
And just developed a friendship. So the theme came about. I'm watching. Bill's now off Fox News. He's got his own podcast, or broadcast as he calls it. He doesn't like to call it a podcast.
Right.
And he said, you know, he comes on after his music stinger, and he's like, "God, I hate my music." And I says, "We got to get some new music here on the set." So I texted him right after his show. I said, "Let me take a stab at writing a new theme for you." He goes, "Go." So I had something in a day.
Oh, that's great.
And he texts back, "Shem, you're a genius. It's going on the air Monday." And it's been his opening theme ever since.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So let's then now dive into a little bit more of a political discussion. All right. So I managed to, through the mist and the veil, identify who and what you might be politically. You have a relationship with O'Reilly. And the obvious question is, have you ever been a victim of cancel culture as a result of your politics in that industry?
No,
Because?
I haven't revealed it. This would be the first time anyone has ever known how I think about anything. Again, it's like first time talking about my Toto departures, first time talking about.
Will this prevent you from getting a call?
I don't think so.
Did Kenny know? You were with him for how many years?
Kenny, everybody in Kenny's band at the time I was in it was conservative,
You're
except for
kidding me.
Kenny.
Except for Kenny.
And the subs too deep. Like the guitar
Right.
player sub and then his sub. It just turned out to be a lot of Nashville guys.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
but it just wasn't a theme. It's not like being in Crosby, Stills and Nash, where Graham Nash is just,
Right,
bullhorn going at all
Yeah.
times politically. It never came up. We're just there to play music. We're not there to talk about this stuff. So it
What did you
didn't-
do when it came up on the bus, though?
Like with the Toto guys?
Yeah, for
Well,
instance.
That band was kind of split. The split guys on our side just didn't say anything. Just was like did a lot of nodding. Lukather would go on a rant.
Right,
It's a monologue. You don't converse with him. He talks at you.
right.
And you just sit there going, yeah, well, yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, that's all you
But
can do.
silence is violence, though. If you don't join in with them, you can get in trouble.
I remember Joseph Williams saying to me, "You're one of those, aren't you?" And I went, "I'm not one of anything. I just keep my mouth shut." Just
Right.
and even Lukather, to his credit, would say, "Hey, I don't care what you are. We're here to make music. It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
And if you look, he's not political in his social media.
No, I've never seen him be political in his social media or on stage.
Smart business-wise.
Right.
Why would you alienate half of your fan base?
That's not true of all of his band members, though,
This is true.
because two of your predecessors in that band
Well, yes, I know. But that's
were incredible. I mean, look, let's just be honest. As much as I love David Hungate as a musician, he is a vile leftist. There's no other way to characterize it.
Bless his heart.
Sklar
I know Sklar.
is not quite as bad as Hungate. In fact, he may have even, I'm not going to say he's moderated his views, but he's moderated his aggressiveness in recent years.
You get older, you have less energy, so maybe it's just
But we're talking about
quit the
some
pasture.
pretty hardcore leftist guys there, and they don't watch their speech at all online.
If you got the truth on your side, you don't have to broadcast it. I wasn't ever compelled to let everyone know how I'm feeling about anything. Like I said, I joined these bands not to have an opinion. I joined these bands
Right.
to do a job.
Yeah. Now you toured with Don Felder,
Yeah.
formerly of the Eagles. Now
Correct.
he's known to be a conservative, right? Pretty vocal.
He's the one that ratted me out to Lukather.
Oh, do you think that had anything to do with
No,
your relationship? You don't think that had anything to do with it?
No, because, like I said, the working relationship was fine. with Toto.
Right.
But my personal, I saw to it that everything was smooth.
All right. So when you and I first started talking, and we're talking about maybe doing something. I was thinking just a podcast. You in your studio, and me in my studio back in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then all of a sudden you dropped something on me. You said, "Oh, by the way, I don't know if this will be of interest to you when we start talking, but
I know where you're going.
I know Ray Epps." And I must have gone speechless. I don't know how I responded in the moment. I know how everybody else has responded in this building when I've told them when you dropped that punchline on me.
Yeah.
So considering how large of a figure he has been over the last 4 years,
yeah.
My editor-in-chief, Matt Peterson, said, get Shem here. And let's talk about this. So we teased it at the beginning, so let's just go there. I mean, how did you meet Ray Epps?
Ray Epps was my handyman. He was in my home over the course of 2 years, 7, 8 times. Right? Put in a ceiling fan in one room. We did some drywall repair, attempted to fix a leak in my roof. Odd jobs, right? And he was actually recommended by the guy who couldn't do the job. He said, "Oh, I know a guy." And it was Ray.
So how far back was this?
This is 2008, 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there. Over the course of about 24 to 30 months, I hired him to do jobs at the house.
So did you get to know him well?
Well, Ray's a talker. Ray is a giant man. He's not just tall. Like Bill O'Reilly's 6'4", but Ray Epps is 6'4",
and big,
burly, powerful man. Not muscular, just big, with a booming voice that you can hear a block away when he's just talking like we are now.
Go into the Capitol.
We'll get there. And he's the kind of guy that when he talks to you, he's smiling, he's putting his hand on your shoulders like this. He's like, "Ow, Ray." But he's passionate and he's talking. So every job he would do, we'd wind up in my driveway talking for 30 minutes. Like, can't get rid of him kind of thing. Like, just goes. So he's very open about his ideology, and I there was a lot of things we were aligned on, right? So, but I just let him talk. And first time he came, he handed me a card for his Oath Keepers. I wish I had that card, Steve. I wish I had.
So this was when he was the Arizona chapter leader of the Oath Keepers, right?
He's one of the upper guys,
right.
I still have his phone number in my phone. And he's like, "We need guys like you, younger guys, athletic, and we're looking to expand this thing."
But you're not military or ex-law enforcement, right?
But well, no, but that's another interview. So he just hardcore. Here, you got to come. And "Oh yeah, Ray. Okay." So another job would come. Driveway again. Another 30-minute talk about this or that. This is just the things we talk about that I got to know who he was, what he's about. He sees himself as a patriot.
Yeah.
He sees himself as fighting for a cause for freedom like the founding fathers. That's what he's about.
You believe he was sincere in that?
100%.
Yeah.
I had nothing to make me go.
So even then, there was nothing that okay, he's handed me an Oath Keepers card. Of course, you really didn't even know who the Oath Keepers were back then.
It was the first time I ever heard the term.
Right. So you weren't looking at him going, I wonder if he's an FBI CHS in the Oath Keepers. That never even crossed your mind.
No. I knew exactly. I was just going to say this. My opinion of the Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, that kind of thing, is Al Bundy's No Man. There's a bunch of guys who are like, we're not going to put up with it anymore. That's what it is. He invited me to a meeting, and he would call me outside of our handyman homeowner relationship, and he'd say, "You're going to come down to the meeting. We were having a meeting down in wherever." I actually got in my car, was going to check it out.
Wow.
Just to see what it's about. And when I got there, I got back in the car and turned around. I didn't go in. I went, something just.
So you got there and turned
I
around.
got there and went, don't do this. Some
Yeah.
angel on the shoulder went, get back in your car. And what happens, he calls me the next day and he leaves a message. I didn't answer the phone. Now, if you're going to keep your oath and you say you're coming, you better make sure, okay, so you're not off to a good start here. That kind of thing.
Gosh.
Cut to, it's a week later and he had just fixed a roofing leak for me. And it starts raining again. Well, it's just falling through.
Pouring through.
Ray, you got to come back and fix the leak. It's not happening. Never heard from him. Called a few days later. Ray, I don't know if you got my message. Never heard from him again.
That was it?
That was it.
And then fast forward to
Forward.
January of
So
2021.
So that's my history with this guy. I knew what he was about in terms of his beliefs, because he will let you know, right? I'm eating dinner, Tucker Carlson's on, and I'm hearing, Ray Epps, Ray Epps. I haven't heard this name in 13 years. I haven't given him a thought in 13 years. And I'm watching, and he's showing the B-roll at the Capitol, and I'm going, that's my old handyman. And he's dressed exactly, except for the MAGA hat, he's dressed exactly like he was in the videos, like he would come fix my roof.
Wow.
And I'm going, unbelievable. So, yeah, now he's front page conservative news, and I'm just going, so I started to pay attention to what was being said about the guy. And I talked to Bill O'Reilly a couple days ago, and I told him I was going to be doing this, and I said, if we talk about Ray Epps, he goes, don't speculate. Tell what you know about the guy. That's what Bill O'Reilly said to me. So what I'm going to tell you, I am going to speculate, but I want to frame it like this. This is just my opinion, based on what I know about the guy. He's wasn't working for the Fed wittingly.
Wittingly.
Correct.
That's a qualifier.
If you're correct, if you're deep state and you're looking to get a guy, because you want numbers going in the Capitol, you want to get there's nobody better than this 6'4" guy with this booming voice, patriot guy, going, now we got to get into the Capitol. He's the perfect guy you want to use to make that happen.
Maybe thinking he was doing it for God and country.
This is a man who sees himself as George Washington.
Okay.
Never would want to see himself as a Benedict Arnold. Ever. He wouldn't be able to live with himself.
Let me tell you something. There's something that most people do not understand about soldiers that follow bad orders, maybe even illegal orders, maybe even unconstitutional orders. They have been convinced by somebody they trust and believe in that this time, in this particular circumstance, you are doing the work of the Lord. You're doing the work of God and country. I know it's strictly a rule broken. And I have spoken to journalists, a journalist in particular, who had spent a lot of time with Ray Epps and interviewed him. He told me that Ray Epps is not smart enough to put his pants on in the morning without his wife's help.
He's a talker, but it's like pretty one track. Yeah, he's not going to win a spelling bee.
And he said there's no way that he went up there and did this on his own. Is that what we're looking at here?
Again, Bill, speculating.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a clever enough person, you can find ways to use another person's passion against them. I think of Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson in That Few Good Men.
Right.
He knew this is what this guy believed in. I'm going to get him to.
Yeah.
In this case, I think he was recruited by someone in the government thinking he's doing the right thing. They could have come to him and said, we're with the Trump people intelligence, right? Trump's still president at the time. We need to get people in the Capitol. You're our guy. Because when they're yelling in the video and they're yelling, Fed, 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 I see confusion on his face.
Yeah.
I don't see, shh, I see, what do you mean? I don't know if you agree with me on that.
No,
but
see, this is the thing with so many of the characters. A lot of people want to believe that this was a Fedsurrection.
Yes.
All right, they use that term, but I don't think that they understand that this wasn't necessarily led by federal agents. It doesn't take a lot. I have a 3-star general who is a source through a cutout for a story that we're doing, who said to me through the cutout that, and this is an exact quote, I would only need 4 or 5 of my best guys to make January 6th happen. And this is a general who oversees special forces who for decades have done color revolutions all over the country. And so when you look at somebody like Ray Epps, you want to characterize him as the bad guy. I've done stories on Officer Harry Dunn, who is a bad guy, who has lied almost pathologically, who has lied and perjured himself in court. And I met with Harry for 4 hours one time, personally, one-on-one. And I told him, Harry, you're being used.
I think that's what we have here. And I think after the fact, again, my theory, only a theory, I think after the fact, when he realized he'd been duped, he was approached again and told, don't you dare say how you were, quote, approached, recruited. If you do, you know, because he was just arrested like all the other people who were arrested, he would have sung like a canary.
Yeah.
But they're trying to keep the lid on all.
He definitely got off easy.
Yeah, he's got
Shem, man, we went all around the world.
Man.
We didn't make 40 trips around the sun this time, but we made some trips around the topics here.
We changed
today.
the time zone a lot.
Yeah, we did. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being willing to come out and sit down and talk with me today, and you not only satisfied part of my Toto geekdom, fandom, nerddom, but I think you had some other really important things to say that we'll all notice when we play this back.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you inviting me here. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Shem.
Yeah.